Hello, welcome to day 46 of 365. Today is the day that God answers Job. Let's keep in mind that the book of Job is the oldest Hebrew text. While the events of Genesis, the creation and the flood, predate Job's life, the book of Genesis was not written until after Job. So the Hebrews that went down into Egypt would have had the book of Job for their theology. And we can see why. So we're going to read chapter 38 and 39 today. I am pretty sure, I'm going to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that God does not speak longer anywhere than in the book of Job. He speaks for chapters. He speaks to Moses, but that's in verses. And then Moses takes the message to Pharaoh, and then Moses comes back and speaks to God. Probably the only person who has heard more from God would have been Jesus himself. So this today's day 46 upload is for February the 17th, 2026. But I'm going to, starting with this upload, start uploading it the night before. So this will be uploaded on February the 16th at around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That way it will be available the evening before and all day, regardless of where you're living. So let's hop in to Job chapter 38. And it starts out right away with God speaking. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? We cannot, no matter how much we study the Bible, greater biblical scholars, way greater than me, would say that there is no knowledge that we can possess that could truly impress God. He might be pleased with it, but we can't impress God. Not with knowledge. But there's knowledge that we can't know living on this earth. Dress for action like a man. Some translations will say gird your loins, meaning pull up your bootstraps and listen to me. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? And what were its bases sunk? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. He's talking about angels there, that during creation the angels were present. Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shall you come and no farther. So this is talking about how far the tides can go. The moon, it's, how far it is from the earth and its pull upon the waves. And said, Thus far shall you come and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed. God is the great mathematician. And what we understand from Job is that there's a lot in here about creation, that God is the creator. God is the chief scientist. God is the chief mathematician and the chief engineer and the chief biologist. When God said to Adam, subdue the earth, what he meant was all of mankind. You solve the problems from the curse, meaning Some will become physicians. Some will become scientists. Some will become astrologers. Others will become farmers. But we're to take what we learn and better the world, subdue that which is cursed. And the greatest who do this, who do their job, such as a doctor, know that first is God. So rather than a scientist sit down and try to figure out a science problem without first knowing who the chief scientist is going to find himself wrong over and over again. And it has happened. I talked about that in a much earlier upload, that when I was in the 6th grade and we had this book about it was an anthropology book about evolution. And we were studying Piltdown Man and Australopithecus. And these are now known hoaxes. So what we were taught as scientific fact is no longer fact. And now they don't even claim that we evolved from apes. They've abandoned that completely. I went to the Museum of Natural Science, a couple of years ago, and to my shock, they took all that down. Not that I believed in it, I didn't, but that they had come far enough to understand that it wasn't fact. So I went a little off reading there, but I thought it was important to point out that what God is talking about, he has the answers to all of this. And only recently with satellites were we able to actually measure the earth. So that wasn't known until our time. But God knew it. He didn't feel Job needed to know it, but God knows it. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea? And there are springs in the sea. And they probably did not, they were not able to navigate that in Job's time, most certainly not. Or walked in the recesses of the deep. Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And where is the place of darkness, that you may take it to its territory, and that you may discern the paths to its home? You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Meaning, Job's lived a long time. He's elderly. I don't know how old, but he's old. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Now, these next verses are prophecy, which he's talking about the storehouses of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war. Meaning, do you know where they're at? But what's interesting here is that the time of trouble is the time of Jacob's trouble. That's what it refers to. And that would be the end times, the battle approaching Armageddon, as many call it, for the day of battle and war. God has certainly used hail in past wars in the Bible, and we will read about them. Great hailstorms. And everybody talks about how it's like fire from hell. I mean, fire from heaven. But it will happen. So when Israel is being marched upon, if we see a giant hailstorm taking people out, we'll know that that was prophesied in Job, the oldest book of the Bible. What is the way to the place where the light is distributed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? Who has cleft a channel for the torrents of rain, and a way for the thunderbolt to bring rain on a land where no man is, on the desert in which there is no man, to satisfy the waste and desolate land, and to make the ground sprout with grass. God is asking Job, what do you know about these things? Has the rain a father? And who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb did the ice come forth? That's an interesting term because we do know that ice is born of water. And who has given birth to the frost of heaven? The waters become hard like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season? Now, the book of Job is the oldest book, I've said, the oldest Hebrew literature. And so its Hebrew is very ancient. And even those who study biblical Hebrew, the Jews and the rabbis who dedicate their lives to it, have difficulty translating it sometimes. And they don't agree. They debate on what words are. So they think that the Mazzaroth references a cluster of stars, something like, in this case, the bear. But the zodiac, everybody thinks either the Arabs or the Greeks came up with that, and that's not true. They took it from the Arabs would be closer because, you know, they are the Ishmaelites. They would be closer to the Hebrews in understanding it. But it's actually the Ishmaelites and the Israelites, the descendants of Abraham, who named these these star groupings of the zodiac. So Judah is the lion, and I don't remember all of them, but there's 12 of them, and they all correspond to the 12 tribes of Israel. And you can look that up. In fact, I'll link Chuck Missler's YouTube video about this chapter, these 2 chapters of Job, because he's fascinating. He's a brilliant man and a phenomenal biblical scholar. Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season, meaning when they rotate around the earth, the astrological signs, for lack of a better word? Well, actually, the better word would be Mazzaroth. Or can you guide the bear with its children? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? He's still talking astrology here. Can you establish their rule on the earth when they are over the Holy Land, that would be? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds that a flood of waters may cover you? Meaning, can you make it rain? No. Can you send forth lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or given understanding to the mind? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can tilt the water skins of the heavens? That's pretty interesting, that the orbiting earth would gather up water, and then it would rain only in a portion of the earth at a time, almost tilting it out like a water skin. I like that visual. When the dust runs into a mass and the clods stick fast together. Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? When they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in their thicket? Who provides for the raven its prey when its young ones cry to God for help and wander about for lack of food? This is also, I think, God's way of saying, I'm aware of every beast of the earth, when it's hungry, what it needs. He is a faraway God that controls the Pleiades and the Orion of the universe. But he also knows when a tiny lion cub is hungry. Do you know, and now we're in chapter 39, do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you observe the calving of the does? Can you number the months that they fulfill? And do you know the time when they give birth? When they crouch, bring forth their offspring, and are delivered of their young. God is saying, Job can't know about every one of them, but God knows. So whenever somebody says, God is too big to pay attention to what I'm doing, I think he focuses on bigger matters. Don't believe it. God himself, this is God speaking for chapters. He is aware of all of it. Their young ones become strong. They grow up in the open and they go out and do not return to them. Who has let the wild donkey go free? Who has loosed the bonds of the swift donkey? To whom I have given the arid plain for his home and the salt land for his dwelling place. He scorns the tumult of the city. He hears not the shouts of the driver. He ranges the mountains as his pasture, and he searches after every green thing. Is the wild ox willing to serve you? A wild ox, no, it would have to be tamed. That's part of God said, the earth is yours and all that is in it for you to subdue. So a farmer back then would have to have tamed oxes to plow fields. God made that possible, however. Will he spend the night at your manger? Can you bind him in the furrow with ropes? Or will he harrow the valleys after you? Will you depend on him because his strength is great? And will you leave to him your labor? Do you have faith in him that he will return your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? They used oxen both ways, I believe, although depending on what they're growing. The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but are they the pinions and plumage of love? For she leaves her eggs to the earth and lets them be warmed on the ground, forgetting that a foot may crush them and that the wild beast may trample them. An ostrich is well known to be a very poor mother. She does leave her eggs out in the open, and if it weren't for God's watching over them, not a single ostrich would hatch. She deals cruelly with her young, as if they were not hers. Though her labor be in vain, yet she has no fear, meaning she knows God will provide, because God has made her forget wisdom and given her no share in understanding. She understands nothing. She's probably quite stupid. She has no wisdom, and she doesn't fear. When she rouses herself to flee, she laughs at the horse and his rider. That's kind of like Wile E. Coyote, right? Is that an ostrich? Roadrunner. I don't think it's an ostrich. Do you give the horse his might? If you love horses, you're going to love this. Do you clothe his neck with a mane? Do you make him leap like a locust? His majestic snorting is terrifying. His paws in the valley and exults in his strength. He paws in the valley and exults in his strength. He goes out to meet the weapons. He laughs at fear and is not dismayed. He does not turn back from the sword. Upon him rattle the quiver, the flashing spear and the javelin. With fierceness and rage, he swallows the ground. He's speaking of a war horse now, tamed by a man or trained to be in battle. He cannot stand still at the sound of the trumpet. When the trumpet sounds, he says, "Aha!" He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. Is it by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads his wings toward the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high? On the rock he dwells and makes his home, on the rocky crag and stronghold. From there he spies out the prey. His eyes behold it from far away. His young one sucks up blood, and where the slain are, there is he. And that is the end of chapter 39, and he will continues speaking in chapter 40, which we don't read today. I cannot do justice to the words of God. I know that I cannot. And I'm going to link Chuck Missler's YouTube channel on this chapter here. And he does a much better job than me, but I would still say even he cannot do justice to God's own words. It's utterly amazing. So now Mark chapter 3, verses 7 to 19. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed from Galilee and Judea, meaning all the land, and Jerusalem and Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan, and from around Tyre and Sidon. When the great crowd heard all that he was doing, they came to him. I want to pause there because yesterday we were reading about the Pharisees, the hypocrites among the religious leaders. Not all of them were, but those who were picking on him for doing great miracles on the Sabbath. I mean, you know, there was nothing in it for them. What did they fear? They should have been amazed. And he told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, lest they crush him. For he had healed many, so that all who had diseases pressed around him to touch him. And whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he strictly ordered them not to make him known. We should not be surprised at that, because in earlier readings during this 2026 Bible study, Satan is literally dueling with Jesus with the Word of God from the Old Testament. Satan can quote the Bible. He knows it. And they are all armed with what they know about God's plan. And their goal is to make sure that we are not included in eternal life. Don't let them. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those whom he desired among many, many people. And they came to him, and he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach and have authority to cast out demons. He appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, or Boanerges, which means sons of thunder, Andrew, and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. So in the New Testament, we've covered that Jesus called his apostles, and in Job, God has spoke not just to Job, but to all of us for all time, for at least 2 chapters, and there are more. Thank you for joining me in reading Scripture. God willing, I'll be back tomorrow.